Hi there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it too. Today we're going to be having a look at some heavy tank action. Some of the big boys biffing, boffing, and boogling the night away. A few other things been going on of late. I'm basically should be in America by now if you're watching this, doing the finals of the Blitz Twister Cup. I'm just doing a podcast in a couple of hours with Alex, the fella from Wargaming, the Asia producer, who's a great dude. I'm also going to be doing some Patreon events over the next weeks. They're doing a tournament even as we speak. If you haven't considered sponsoring the channel, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Private videos, voice chat, a Telegram chat channel, events, boot camps, you name it, we got it. But this is the Conqueror. Now, I love the Conqueror. A lot of people think this tank isn't that great, and they're wrong. If you want to know why I like it, look at the gun dispersion. Look at the bloom on the reticle. That's while you're driving at full pace, turning the turret and turning the tank. The dispersion on this thing is phenomenal. It's an absolutely superb gun, but I don't play it like a normal heavy tank. And I think this is one of the reasons why people fall out of love with some of the tanks in the British heavy line. If you've watched the recent Conqueror review I did, you'd know exactly what I mean when I say it's not a standard heavy tank. It doesn't have the armor profile to get up there and biff and boff like an E75 or even, and this is one I love a lot, a Vk4502B, which we're going to show in the next couple of clips in this video. What the Conqueror has is an absolutely superb weapon system that gets about the place at high pace and pumps out damage. Now, you're going to see Swiss is in the M46 pattern. Two tanks that are vastly underrated by the majority of people in the game. The pattern is just a fantastic on-the-move machine. It's got brilliant dispersion on the move. It's really good gun depression. It's got a nice dose of alpha. It's a really solid tank. You just can't treat it like a T-54. It's not a heavy tank in a medium tank's clothing. It's very much its own man. And much like the Conqueror, when you put these tanks in situations to be successful, they shine. And you can see here Swiss is zooming all over the place using the ridges around the cap circle, much like I am here with the Conqueror, doing the business and putting damage in. The rest of the team has fallen to bits, and there's just the three of us left over here, and this E75, who by the way simply cannot play the game, is going to carry on like a pork chop. We made no pretenses of moving down the heavy route, and he still pushed down the middle of it regardless. And that's the kind of silliness you're going to get in this game. The ST1 is saying too many salt. He's a very funny dude. We're pushing around here on the bore signal. You're going to see what I mean about this is a different kind of heavy tank. We shoot and we're back in, and we're just moving backwards and forwards, and it's that ability to snapshot that really separates the Conqueror from the rest of the heavies in its tier. The M103 makes claims to being a heavium, but the Conqueror is absolutely shoulders and head above it in terms of gun handling, and it allows for it to fire on the move unlike the rest of the heavy tanks in its tier. And you can see there's an IS-8 just popping around the corner there. He's going to do that T-44, who wasn't really watching, got himself in a really poor spot, and we're going to use this backwards and forwards motion again. We're switching up to high explosive HESH because we have 120 millimeters of penetration on our high explosive rounds, and we smack the waffle, and we're going to get him another time here, quick shot, and then pull back, and Bob's your mother's brother. Now that's the sensible way of using a tank like the Conch. The Conch has very little armor in terms of frontal armor. You can penetrate it all over the place with heat or APCR promo ammunition, and its turret is not super strong either. It's the right kind of turret if you want to move back and forward like I was doing there and use the gun, and that's fine because heavy tanks are great when they're a big heavy, but so often the armor on a heavy tank is just nullified by premium ammunition. However, there are a few heavy tanks out there that can stand up to the test of Premo. This is one of them, the 4502B. I came to this tank quite late in my World of Tanks Blitz career. I really didn't rate it very much, and with good reason. The tank was quite slow, the gun wasn't fantastic. It was more or less just a big immobile lump of poop. They buffed the armor on it, and with that one buff, they completely changed the way the tank works in the game. It is totally capable of being a big meat shield, a la an E75, but it's got a much stronger upper glacis than most of the tanks you're going to find. You're also going to see me do something here that I do all the time in a heavy tank. A heavy tank is just that, a heavy tank. So what I'm going to use is the weight of the tank, even though, you know, that guy, the Pershing, is a one-shot. I'm not going to waste a round on him. I'm going to push down, hit him with the round, and then I'm going to turn and fire the next round into the lower glacis of the E50 that is currently pumping into Swiss Cheesel in the E75. And you'll note we're fighting Mojo and Toddcat from Scucks, and we had the most hilariously bad matchmaking against these guys. Like, we got them 6 games in a row and we won one of them. And while we didn't play that badly, this was pretty much the case every time. The whole team was dead, and we were 2-on-4, 2-on-5, 2-on-7. But you can see the Vk45 performs fantastically in these kind of encounters. It's such a strong upper play. As long as you hide that lower glacis, you can absolutely bottom out. The big mistake you can make in a VK or any of these kind of tanks is getting too aggressive. Now, I'm going to do that here. Now, I was in a fantastic position back there. I was hull down at the base of the incline. It was very hard for them to pen me. They couldn't see my lower glacis. And now I've moved up. I've exposed that lower glacis. The IS-8 has a good gun, the M62. And the Borsig has a fantastic 150mm of heat gun, and that's it. You just you can't expose your lower glacis and expect to live. We do manage to take another one with us here. The IS-6 goes, Swiss pumps him, then I'm going to put another one into him there. But all in all, too many tanks, not enough time, and some poor gameplay decisions there at the end, where I push back up towards the enemy. It can work for you, but if you get good players like Mojo and Toddcat who can play their tanks, you're going to struggle in that instance. And we still got the mastery in defeat, which I think is a bit unfair on that one. 4200 is not anywhere near enough for a mastery in that tank, even as a valiant effort. I mean, we bounced a lot of shots and everything, but I think valiant effort needs to be adjusted tremendously. Now, this is the big brother of the Conqueror. And much like the Conqueror, I play this like a wild heavium. It is even worse than the Conq in terms of armor profile, because it simply cannot compare against the E100s and the IS-7s and the IS-4s of the world. What it has, though, is a gun that's even better than the Conqueror's gun. And you can see from this video, while I have not pushed up there, because there's basically 2 big issues with this tank. One is the armor, and the other one is the rear-mounted turret. So when you're on a hill or an incline and there's a target in front of you, because your turret is at the rear, your gun depression is absolutely pants, and you get flogged. You score next to no hits. You can't get the gun down, and it's very, very hard to get shots into targets. Where the 215B excels, and this is an unsung part of the tank, is it destroys medium tanks. It's exceptionally tough to flank around the 215B. Because the turret is at the back, it's actually got this huge bonus. As you turn, if you're trying to go around this tank, you don't just have to get past the midpoint of the tank to be safe from the gun. You've got to get past the rear of the tank to be safe from the gun. And it's got great traverse numbers, so it's hard enough to go around in the first place. And look at this gun. It's just singing. Any kind of flank shot, and it just sings. Now, there's people who'll go, why didn't you go the hill? You should have gone the hill. You're wrong. In a tank like this, you need to put the gun in the position to be successful. And trading hit points on a hill fight where you can't get the gun down to get shots is not being successful. I'm firing nearly on the reload out here on the flank. Unfortunately, the rest of the team has been overwhelmed in the middle. I think pushing up there was a huge mistake, given that we had 0 medium tanks. So we basically had heavy tanks driving the hill who had no mobility and could be very, very easily flanked. And our TDs pushed up there as well, which means that there was no one at the back holding the other side. I could have sniped from the back, but I thought going to the flank was the better move. You're going to see here too, the tank just doesn't stop. It non-stop. The gun is superb. You might have seen Selbrock driving the 215B in the Asia Twister Cup finals, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that it was out of place amongst the IS-7s of the world and the IS-4s and the Object 140s. But this thing just constantly gets shots on target and constantly does damage. The IS-8 on my left is going to be the undoing of me because he's not silly enough to stick around when I turn, and eventually there's just too many guns to deal with. And I just missed getting one off on this tank destroyer who has an LOL. I don't know why, because it's not like it was a tough match. We still managed to put out nearly 5,000 damage from that flank in a very, very short space of time. So just because you're driving a heavy tank, don't fall in love with the notion that you have to be like a Vk4502B, or you have to be like an E100, or you have to be like a mouse and drive at the front and be the tip of the spear. It's a stupid concept, and pigeonholing yourself into that kind of thing is just another way of giving guys who know how to play the game an advantage. Because if you drive up the middle of a map like this in a 215B, you'll get hit from all sides. If you push through to the spawn or through to the other side, you're just as likely to run into TDs and campers, and your armor profile simply isn't enough to survive a premium ammunition hit from a tier 9 tank destroyer or even a tier 8 tank destroyer. And you can see straight away, Mojo is here again. It was a very tough old day at the office, and I've decided the only possible way for us to do any good here is to just pump forward and smash HE into the RU and push on Mojo, whether I have to take hits from behind to do it or not. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Now we're now down by 2 tanks again, Swiss and myself, and it is all looking very dire. And I'm just trying to get this T-44 out of the way. Mojo gets another bounce, which is just ridiculous. He was getting bounces all day long. And here we go, we're going to get another one into him. We're switching to APCR. We've had enough of this rubbish. The 44's finally going to land a shot. The heat is coming hot and heavy, but Mojo is down. Thank God for small mercies. Only problem, I've got next to no hit points left. Now you see this RU-251's carcass here. What I'm going to do is put myself in a situation to side scrape off that carcass. Now the T-32, I know from experience, does not have good penetration numbers on its gun. In fact, it's got some of the worst penetration values in Tier 8 for a heavy. The VK will easily pen me if I let him see my lower glacis. And you can see what I'm doing here is just keeping that VK ahead of me and angling to the T-32. And that stops the VK from getting shots in. I push up, and then if he goes too far forward, I'm just wiggling. Get the shot on the track. We're still alive. We're still in the game. The T-32 is not pushed around. He's moved back because there are shots coming on from the left from Swiss Cheezel in the Waffle tractor. And Mojo is quite right in saying the VKB frontal armor, oh my God. And he's dead on. If you've never driven this thing, it's got 300mm of frontal armor at the front with just the touch of an angle, just the slightest angle. If you can hide that lower glacis, tanks like the T-44 and the T-32, look at the roll here, by the way. This is ridiculous. 697 on a HE roll for a Tier 9 heavy. That is outrageous. Swiss was carrying on like a pork chop about that in chat. And the IS-8 is the last one left. He's been sniping in the corner, and we're going to polish him off. Know your tanks, boys and girls. Even if you're not the greatest player in the world, i.e. me, if you know what your tank's strength is and you play to it, you can get the most out of it. And then a lot of it is just up to who else is on your team. If you play your tank properly, you do your damage or you hold a line, that's where it's at. Don't listen to the haters, the guys screaming about you needing to be at the front when you're in a Conqueror or a Carnarvon, or you're in a medium tank. Give me spots if you're, in some kind of sense 7-1 or something like that. You've got to listen to your heart, know your vehicle, learn it, learn how to play it, learn your own play style, and stick to your guns. As long as you're outputting a good amount of damage, or you're holding the line, or you are spotting targets, you're doing something, then you're doing it right. and be flexible. There'll be times when there won't be big enemy heavy tanks in the line. There won't be Jagdpanzer 100s. There won't be Vk4502Bs. And you're going to have to adjust your play style. Or you might even be more aggressive than you normally are because the whole team is mediums on the enemy side. Then go for it. But until that time, until you learn to use your tank the proper way, until you learn to have a little bit of flexibility in your mindset as well, and until you learn to be a little bit selfish at times. For instance, that mines map was just an atrocious train wreck. Everyone was pushing that hill despite the fact we had 0 mediums, and a lot of our heavies, our TDs were just massive, big, slow things. That had disaster writ large. And if that's the case, then be a little bit selfish and leverage those guys who aren't going to put out any damage. Leverage their hit points into something, and that's what we did. Anyway, boys and girls, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support. You've been amazing. Keep spreading the word. I hope to see some of you in New York. The event is open to the public. Just turn up on the day. It's the Altman Building in New York City on the 19th. And we'll be rocking and rolling there in the Blitz section. There is a Wargaming League section as well, so you can watch the big boys from PC go hammer and tong, or you can pop into the little room next door for the blitzers like me and watch some of the best in the world go nuts. I'm Bushka on Blitz. You're lovely. Look after your families and stay safe on the battlefield.